Okay, so what we're going to do is learn how to use the pen tool here. Now, for this assignment, we're going to be looking back to the shape tool as well, but this is now we're adding the pen tool in. So the first thing is we're now tracing an object. We're not simply just drawing it off of the pen tool, off of the shape tool. So what we're going to need here is 2 layers, and we're going to just need our layers panel and our properties panel, which both can be found over at your window. So the first thing is I'm going to simply make a new layer, and I'm going to go into the Patrick layer, and I'm going to change my properties. So if I click on it, this will change. And what we want is our opacity down. And the reason we want that is just so that as we're drawing, we can see our lines more clearly than we can see Patrick's. We're going to go back to layers, and we are going to look right here between the eyeball and the arrow, and we're going to go ahead and click in that little blank space, and that's going to give us a locked layer, meaning that we can't draw on it. We want everything to stay in this layer 2, and even if I want to rename it, I could go in and name it Patrick Trace, and that way I know what layer I'm on. Now within this, you're going to be creating paths and shapes. That basically just means lines or closed shapes, and we'll talk about what a closed shape means right here. So up until now, we've been using the shape tool. Here we're going to use this one called the pen tool. The pen tool creates anchor points. Once you create an anchor point, if you start to move it, you'll create a path, which is just a line. The only reason it's called paths is because you can also use those to make essentially cutouts or what are called masks, and that's for a later lesson. So here we're going to click, and now we have a line here. We're going to do this again. Now the thing is that right now we don't have anything to fill in this line, which is called a stroke. So we're going to come over here to this side. We're going to click on this. We're going to double click, and we're going to make it block. So now we have, and sometimes it fights with you. Now we have a shape. So we could do things like fill in the shape. So right now it looks like it's empty because the shape, the fill color is the same as the background color, but if I go like this, we can see that we made a squarish rectangle-y thing. What's cool about this, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, is we can edit it after the fact. So for example, if I'm on my selection tool, it's going to act just like any other shape, and I can manipulate the whole thing as one large item. I can also go in and I can use my direct selection tool, and I can do things like this, and I can now round the corners, or I could round just one corner by double clicking. I can double click my anchor point and move it without moving everything else. I can double click my path and move it without moving everything else. But the other thing I can do is I can go in and I can find handles. So if I right click on the pen tool and go to the anchor point tool, I can now go in and I can find a handle. And a handle lets me change how the 2 paths curve over that anchor point. So if I want more of a curve like this, now that's what my shape looks like, and we have kind of a baseball diamond. I can also hit Alt on my keyboard, and I can grab just one side or the other if I want to do that. So for example, if we were making a heart, this would be a great way to do it. Okay, so I'm going to delete this out. I'm going to show you how we're going to use this, because there's one other thing that this does that's really helpful. I want to go from here to here. Now we're going to run into some problems. The first one is there are eyes here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to make the eyes first. So I'm going to go back to my tool here. I'm just going to make an oval, and I'm going to rotate it a little bit by going to the corner, and you'll see this little change in your icon to an arrow pointing in 2 directions, and that lets us make an eye. Now the cool thing we can do is if we don't want to have to repeat this, if we want to we just want the same eye again, we can hold Alt and drag. Now here's where this gets interesting. So you notice that this one is sitting over this one. Well, because if you look at them in the layers, if one is sitting higher than the other, it's more out front the way we see it here. If I were to switch these, that's what it would look like. Why this is helpful is because when we make things, for example, if we want to draw Patrick, if you were drawing this by hand, you would have to stop here and then restart there. We don't have to do that. We can go all the way through and draw Patrick with no problem. So the big thing is, up until now, we've only drawn angles. So we're going to see how to draw curves. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go to where my first major curve is, and I'm just going to click and hold and drag. And I can edit all of these afterwards if I want to. So I'm going to go through. And if I don't want to fill color here, I can come over and do this, and I've just got an outline now. Now you'll notice it's going over the eyes because it's putting it at the highest layer first. We'll fix that in just a minute. Now later on I'm going to come back and I'm going to want to draw the shorts. So since I know those are going to be a layer separate from Patrick himself and higher up, I can just go through, and I'm not even going to draw his legs because we don't really need to here. We can go back and do them separately later. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to come back here, and I'm actually going to not draw his arm. I'm going to make that its own layer too. And now we have Patrick as an outline. But because Patrick is sitting up higher, the outline is going over the eyes. So I'm going to move that down, and now it's going under. So you'll see that, and I can change the outline color here. I can pick kind of a pinkish color. And let's make sure we're selecting the right thing. And now it's kind of a pinkish color. If I want to make that outline bigger, I can come up here to where it says stroke, which is just the word for outline in Illustrator. And I can make it a little bigger. So now if I want to go back and do the shorts, I can do that. I can come in and I could either hand draw them, I could make them a half circle and use the Pathfinder to cut them out. So I'll do it very quickly just so we can kind of see what I'm talking about. Go to my layers. And now I'm going to make a new sub layer in here, and it's at the top. That's where I want it. I'm just going to click here. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to make it perfect. Now here's a good thing. Notice that this wants to curve, but I don't really want it to. So if I click on the anchor point again and come over, I can now redirect it. So I'm going to click over here. I'm going to come down here, and again, I don't want it to curve like that, so I'm going to redirect. I'm going to close my shape. And now I can go to my fill color, and I can make it kind of a green. And if I want my inside color here to be more black, I can do that, and now I have that. And I could come in, afterwards